bold, and extremely fun. It's Sunrise with Craig Vronick right here on KCMX AM 880. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes. We want to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or go to kcmxam.com. Join in the conversation by calling 541-772-8255. Sunrise, where it matters what you think.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 8 minutes after the hour, you're on the Sunrise Show, KCMX World Headquarters. You can always find us, KCMXAM.com. Has our phone number listed there, the 541-772-8255. Has our Twitter link available, or our Facebook page. You can get right in there. But I want to welcome on to our program two very special guests in my book, Fire Chief from Lakeside Fire Department, Lakeside, Oregon out there, Ted Ross, along with Dive Chief Bob Hood. And Dive Chief Bob Hood's been in the business with 21 years as far as public diving and saving, and started out at the North Bend dive team out there. And then after the funding ran out, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know if their dive team was going to stay together, and that's when Ted Ross swung into action and said, we have to have a dive team. Turns out that Bob Hood has taken his connection to the next level and worked with the U.S. Coast Guard and the station there at North Bend, and because of that has been an integral force with the United States Coast Guard and the dive team, saving lives and recovering bodies and everything like that, whatever the dive team do. And I want to bring on Bob and Ted. Great to have you on. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Well, and this was it. This is all about this life-saving situation that happened June 12th out on Tenmile Lake about noon. And I guess what I'll do is first, Bob, I want to hear a history of a dive team and how integral, how important. I mean, for folks that don't know, Tenmile Lake has 43 miles of shoreline, 1,900 acres of water, and that's even just 10 mile. Coast Guard, 220 miles of shoreline, and you helped them with that. Is that right, Bob?
Yeah, that's correct.
So tell us about the dive team and the history of it.
The dive team started roughly 1993 with just a couple of us that were sport divers at that time. The fire department at North Bend had recognized the need for this type of action, you know, with the bay. We're right on the bay and all the rivers. And so we kind of started loosely at that point. There were 5 or 6 of us then. In 1998, the North Bend Airport got larger aircraft, and they were required to have a dive team, a water rescue team. At that point, they sent us to Dive Rescue International, and we all got, you know, properly trained. We went through Public Safety Diver, Dive Rescue Technician 1, and Dive Rescue Technician 2. And that's how we got really in the professional training with North Bend. And we were doing cases all along, a lot of Sheriff's Department work, cars in the river, drowning recoveries and such, and evidence. And then around 1998, late 98, 99, the Coast Guard had to deal with an entrapment issue, I believe, in Southern California area. And their swimmers are not allowed to go underwater or under objects. You know, they can swim under as long as they're not under a boat or anything. And that kind of forced them to look for teams that were dive qualified with Dive Rescue International is kind of what they were looking for. And we were right on Air Station North Bend with them. And so we kind of found each other that way. And for the first 2 years, there was just a lot of training. And to be truthful, it was a hard transition for the divers to start flying and get proficient at it. And so several years of hard training, we started going on calls. And the next thing we know, we were working with the Coast Guard, and we train. It's depending on their flight schedule. It can be twice a month, and then we may have a couple of months off.
Interesting. Well, Bob, you have naval experience. You're a 6-year Navy veteran, and so this is something that exciting, but also you knew there was a need out there with all the waterways. You knew there was a need, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so there wasn't any search and rescue. I mean, Jackson County has their own search and rescue. Josephine County does. But is there a search and rescue team under the sheriff's office?
There is here in Coos County, but they don't have divers.
Interesting. Okay, so that's why it's so important. So you fill the need from not only the Coos County Sheriff's Office, but also you help out with Coast Guard. All right, so then fast forward, of course, the funding ran out. You didn't know what you were going to do, and that's when Ted from the Lakeside Fire Department said, hey, let's continue this. I'll find a way. Right, Ted?
That's correct. We were on actually, Bob lives in Lakeside, and we've known each other for quite some time, and I think it was early 2013, January, and there was a vehicle that went in 10 Mile Creek, and Lakeside was operating on that to find out whether or not there was any survivability in it. It was a heavy outflow. Big storms had been going on, and we were down there in the process of that, and Bob approached me at that time and said, you know, the dive team's being shut down at North Bend, and would you consider going ahead and putting the dive team back together? And as soon as that happened, we immediately began to engage in talks with each other about the dive team and how it worked, and the stuff that went on, and it was evident at that point in time it was really a no-brainer to see that for the greater good of the entire area that somebody needed to pick up the dive team.
Exactly. And when fire crews, I mean, help me out here a little bit, Ted, when fire crews roll up on a scene, they don't have dive gear with them. This dive gear is personal dive gear, so each of the divers have their own gear, and it's based off of the search and rescue and how they roll up or called out on a scene. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct. The dive gear for rescue diving is very specialized, so it's completely different than anything you'd be looking at in sports diving or even in general work diving type of situations. The equipment is highly specialized, and it's very technical, so it's a completely different animal.
Exactly. So this takes your fire department to a whole new level. I mean, because I'm sure you practice waterway rescue, vehicles stuck in the middle of the, water, creek, that kind of thing, how to grab a stranded rafter. I'm sure you have that with all the different rivers out there. I mean, look, the Coast Guard, their range, 220 miles of shoreline, encompasses Chetco River, the Coos Bay, Umpqua River, Siuslaw River, Yaquina Bay, and Depot Bay. You folks have your hands full over there. The reason I brought you on today, this amazing rescue, and I want to talk about that when we come back after the break, only because, it's such a tourist-type area, and a lot of residents from Oregon visit all of the Oregon coast, along with tourism from all over the world, quite frankly. But for residents in Jackson County and Josephine County, they get to the coast a lot. And to know that you're there, to know that you're working at building a great team is important. And I wanted to bring you on, and at that point, with this nothing less than a miracle, and with this life-saving on June 12th, I want to talk about that. So Bob and Ted, stay on the phone with us. We've got Dive Chief Bob Hood in with us, and Fire Chief from Lakeside Fire Department, Ted Ross. We'll be right back. You won't want to miss this. They saved 3 lives because they put their leadership and their belief in what they could do together. It's a fascinating story. We'll be right back.
You set up a table, most anything you like. Now, babies in town, we're gonna rock tonight.
Stay tuned. Sunrise will return in a moment on KCMX News Talk 880. gentle, bold, and extremely fun. Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. on KCMX AM 880. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes. Here's Craig.
Rock this house, we're gonna rock, gonna rock. Rock this house, we're gonna rock, gonna rock. Rock this house, we're gonna rock. Rock this house tonight. Yeah, we're gonna rock.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 19 minutes after the hour, you've got Craig Froelich on the Sunrise Show. And in with me as our guest today, Bob Hood. He's the dive chief over at Lakeside Fire Department, along with Fire Chief for Lakeside Fire Department, Ted Ross. And they were involved in a life-saving event, I guess I would call that. Nothing short of a miracle how everything worked. And Ted, you told me that it was a perfectly conducted, everything in concert, and because of the training that all of the team members for the department and how you work with the dive team, it could not have happened any other way that this and that you conduct yourself in kind of a military type discipline. Bob, bring us up to this day, June 12th, 10 Mile. You've been dispatched out about noon or so, and you've got a capsized sailboat, but it's 200 to 300 yards out from shore.
Yeah, it was, we got the tap out, and, and that's going to get your attention. I've had to do several of these over my career, and they end bad. So, obviously I knew we were in pretty hot, so we had divers responding to the area. We have a boat that's already stationed in the water due to, the lake homes and all that. So they had dispatched, I believe, 5 were on the boat. So they were already underway and conducted a rescue of the first 2 that were thrown from the boat when it was overturned. They fell out of the cockpit. And at this point, I was on the phone and radio trying to find out what we actually had. I didn't know the gravity of the situation yet, but it sounded bad just from the voices. You could hear the stress.
Oh, yeah.
Go up.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point, Captain Walker, another diver that we have, was on scene, but by protocol, we can't do anything yet. And I got to really give him a huge prop is he swam near the boat and now realized, the first fireboat had dropped him off right next to it. He could hear him screaming inside. And a real heads-up play on his part was he held his regulator under there and put some air in the boat. And that probably bought us some time because, that put some more air in the hull, in which they desperately needed.
Yeah, so we had
in approximately 16 or 17 minutes, and the second fireboat was ready to launch. I just downloaded my gear. The crew was perfect in getting all the gear out, getting me dressed, and we were underway immediately to join the second boat. And the other thing that could have gone horribly wrong for us is if our crews weren't trained in what they were doing and they waked that boat real hard, it could have easily spilled the last of the air out.
Exactly.
So they were very cautious in what they did. We approached slowly, and that was a good thing. And they set up a perimeter for us to keep other boats off of us, looky-loos.
Right. But now the interesting thing is there was a grandmother, a daughter, and the 2-month-old baby that were in there. You didn't know this, but that's who was underneath.
Yeah, she was actually a 2-year-old.
Two-year-old.
And
okay.
No, I didn't know that at the time. Obviously, we got on scene, and James and I both came in on the port side of the vessel, and I got right next to the window. It had a big cabin on it, and it was inverted, and I could hear him screaming, and I was like, oh, yeah, we're in trouble. And we decided that James would run safety for me, and then I kind of made my way into the boat. I got to the cabin door, and someone was standing on the roof. I could see their leg there. I could only maybe see 2 feet in the water, and I was tapping her leg trying to get her to swim out, but she wouldn't go. And so we had to, I eased my way into the cabin of the boat, and when I surfaced, that's when I realized, we're in huge trouble. And what I saw was 2 women and a little baby crouched in a corner, and they were holding the baby out of the water. They were all shivering and pretty freaked out. At that point, we're gonna have to gamble at this. You can't teach a little infant to breathe on a regulator.
Right.
And so, I talked to the mother and I said, let me get your, give me your baby, ma'am. And, initially she was hesitant, and I told her, we're going to get you out of here. We got a lot of resources. We're going to make this happen for you, okay? And she handed me the kid, and at that point, I'm holding the baby with my mask up, and it's real dark. I had a light on my mask so I could see the little baby's face. And you can blow in a baby's face and they'll hold their breath.
Right.
And I kind of went, well, and I looked at her, I said, you ready, honey? And I took a big, deep breath, and she did. She took it right with me. It was amazing.
Oh, my gosh. So she understood she should take a breath and hold it.
Yeah, she couldn't speak, but she was just, I think something in her realized what we were doing. If that sounds weird, but that's what happened.
Wow.
And so I put my mask down, and I went underwater. And as I was exiting the cabin, I kind of had to maybe swim 5-6 feet to the door. And as soon as I got the door, the little baby's underwater and holding her breath. So this is kind of a tricky thing. And as soon as I got out of the hatch, I turned right immediately. And unknowingly, I got into the sailboat rigging. So I had ropes on me, on my shoulder, my tank, my leg. I got into a mess. And the baby was starting to struggle at this point. And so it was...
not pretty. She'd have taken one breath. It had been all over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was stressing that. And then ultimately, I just kept digging forward, and I could feel the lines giving, and then I saw it go to light, like I knew that I was out from under the boat. And I could see James's fins right there. So I popped up right there, and as soon as I hit the surface, the little baby let out a big breath.
Oh, my God.
The ropes held me about right there, 2 to 3 feet from that spot. And I inflated my BC, and I looked at the little girl, and I said, you okay, honey? And she actually giggled. It was really cool. I inflated my vest, told James I was tangled. He took the baby to the boat at this point, and that's when the baby started crying. She was pointing back to the boat because she knew her mother was in there.
Right.
And James came back, cut me loose. Then we both went under the front of the boat, or near the door of the boat, and cut any remaining lines that we could find. And then we just repositioned back into the same positions. I was going back into the hull, knowing the way, and James is my safety again. And at the same time, this is where the teamwork comes in. Coast Guard was over us, so we knew if we had a big accident, we had a 170-mile-an-hour ambulance essentially with us. And their lower Elkhorn ambulance was there with 3 of their units, so we had advanced life support as well.
So you still had to rescue these 2 other adult females out of the boat.
Yep. And yeah, absolutely. As we had, so we're probably maybe 3 or 4 minutes into it, the actual rescue, and I knew the safest way in now, and I made my way back into the boat and popped up, and I believe it was the grandmother was the second one out, and I gave her some quick instructions. I was just face to face with her in there, and she was real calm. She did a great job, by the way. I told her, it's going to be over in 15 to 20 seconds. Just hang on to my waist and let's go. And she just looked at me and gave me a nod, and we submerged. And I went out, instead of an immediate right-hand turn out of the doorway, I went about 10 feet further, then took a right and popped up, and I didn't get into any debris at all.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And we repeated that process. I surfaced with her, and then James protected her to the other boat while they towed him on his comm line and his tender line. And we got back into position and repeated that the third time. I believe it was the mother. She was pretty shaken because she'd been in that boat for about an hour, and she was getting cold and scared because she was now alone.
Now, how much? Now, Bob,
for the third time, repeated the same instructions, and we got it done. We came out, and it was maybe 15, 20 seconds with the third victim. Got him out, and it was over, and we got to him. So it was pretty amazing.
Well, the interesting thing is there's no visibility from the people in the cabin, and you were saying that the air was running out. They didn't have much air. They were huddled in a small little air pocket. How big would you say that air pocket was?
It seemed to me like it was maybe, the boat was kind of at an angle, 2 feet wide, 3 feet long, and only 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches to the top of the boat. So they were having to hold their heads up right at what would be the floor of the boat. And as I remember, when I came by one of the windows from the outside, it was hissing and losing air there. So with James putting his air in like he did the first time, and then I between the baby and the grandmother, I put a bunch more air in as well.
How many minutes, Bob, from the entire time from baby to grandmother to mother went on? How many minutes did that take?
I think it was around 7 to 8 minutes for the rescues to be complete.
That is unbelievable. Bob, that's a fascinating, it's just a heroic thing, and we're thankful. We have a break coming up that we want to get to, and I want to hold you over because I want to talk about this teamwork and the training that you've gone through, and this is a wonderful thing to celebrate with the community and with everything out there. But had you not done the work you'd done behind the scenes. If Ted had not been the visionary on this, you hadn't worked together with all of the crew members and realizing the service to the community, you would have had a very different situation that day.
It could have ended a whole bunch different, you bet.
Exactly right. We're talking to Dive Chief Bob Hood from Lakeside County Fire, and also Ted Ross. He's the fire chief from Lakeside Fire Department. We'll be right back. We've got more on the Sunrise Show to go. I want to talk about this teamwork and celebrate this life-saving event from June 12th of this year. We'll be right back. More on the Sunrise Show after this.
Stay tuned. Sunrise will return in a moment on KCMX News Talk 880. We want to hear from you. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or go to kcmxam.com and go to the Talk to Us tab. Send us your thoughts. Lively conversations around news, politics, and people, plus local news and weather every 30 minutes.
The way you do the thing you do, the way you kiss me too, the way you do the thing you do.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 33 minutes after the hour. We're just finishing up with Dive Chief Bob Hood from Lakeside Fire Department, and also Fire Chief Ted Ross from Lakeside Fire Department. Over there, Coos County is where they're at along U.S. Route 101. Lakeside is 15 miles north of Coos Bay, and you wonder, well, why would that matter to everyone over in Jackson, Josephine County, and all the way down? Well, we go over there. We tour over there. It's nice to know that there is support over there in case we would need it, or if we're vacationing. I'll bet you there's listeners that have property or boats, or that they boat over there all the time, and Tenmile Lake. And we're just so thankful, Bob, that you were able to do what you do. And what's amazing to me is that the dive team is set up as a volunteer basis. And Ted, you were just saying that because of the small tax base and the small funding that you've got, what did you call them? The folks that pitch in on helping with the funding?
They're stakeholders.
Stakeholders,
People,
that's right.
Agencies or operations that see the benefit in the dive team and are willing to make a contribution to the dive team so that we can maintain or be able to purchase more equipment or do the stuff that we need to do to be able to stay proficient in our training. So OTH Airport is a stakeholder, and North Bend Coast Guard Air Station is based on the airport ground where they both share common space. This pairing is really significant for Lakeside Fire Department because we, other than Coos County, we come to Jackson County if we're needed, and we come to Josephine County if we're needed, and there's not a place in Oregon that if we're not needed, that we won't respond to. We work with all agencies in support of emergency operations and people that are in need.
Exactly. And Ted, interesting, I kept Jackson County Commissioner Doug Bridenthal because he's a firefighter, and he wanted to ask a question. Commissioner?
Hey, Chief, you sent engines over here to Medford when we had our conflagration here over in east side of Medford not too long ago, a couple years back, if I remember correctly. Your firefighters were actually fighting fire here in Jackson County.
That's correct. We are happy to respond to absolutely any emergency that there's a need for additional personnel and equipment at, and we were honored to be offered the opportunity to work in Jackson County.
Ted, one of the things I wanted to ask, Doris, you said it earlier, you said everything on this rescue, June 12th, everything happened perfectly in concert, and you were recognized, your team was recognized by Oregon Governor John Kitzhaber. He wrote a letter, he said, your actions on June 12, 2014 in Lakeside demonstrate the depth of that professional skill with a quick, well-coordinated response that saved the lives of 5 people. I wanted to ask you, Ted, did Captain Mark Reynolds, who's the CO for the U.S. Coast Guard, he has to be pretty proud about that.
I believe that the Coast Guard was very proud of that, and in the process of this, there were probably 25 people that were operating in concert on that call on June 12th. We had the Coast Guard asset overhead in case our divers had a significant problem. We had Lower Umpqua Ambulance and Bay City's ambulance on scene, Douglas County Sheriff, Coos County Sheriff, and Lakeside Fire and Rescue there. So when there's an emergency and you can combine a number of assets and resources together and everybody can work in concert with each other, you can accomplish really amazing things.
Exactly right. And that was one of the things that I found, one of the great things I found, because we talk about leadership, lack of leadership, and folks stepping up. In this time in our country right now, we have a lot of naysayers, a lot of folks talking, but they don't have a lot of folks doing, you know. And this is, I wanted just to help celebrate with you the tremendous achievement by saving these folks' lives and having the apparatus right there. Have you talked to the family since that point?
I haven't personally. This was a pretty traumatic experience for those people that were involved. When you have 3 generations of the same family that could have perished in a very short period of time, it takes them a while to process the incident and to move forward from that. I'm sure that eventually we will have conversations with them. We actually have the child's shoes and sweatshirt and pants at the fire station, and whenever I go into the office, I take a good long minute to take a look at those and to recognize the fact that somebody's family is a lot better off because of the operation that occurred on that day.
Well, you're absolutely right, Ted. And, life is so fragile, and I think we forget that on a daily basis. And hats off to you. I can't say enough great things about you and your team and Bob and his team and the crew together. And really, quite frankly, it's outstanding that we've got organizations that work separately on a daily basis, but then in times of need, in times of emergency, they come together in a moment's notice, quick. And one of the things that came out of this was that this rescue, between when the divers are in the water to the time that they had the 2-year-old out of the water and handed to the next diver, and then the grandmother out, and then the mother out, was under a minute and 10 seconds. This is unbelievable to me.
That was an hour and 7 minutes, actually, was the time from the initial time of the response to the finish of the response. It was about 7 minutes when the divers were ready to engage the operation to get all 3 of the family members out of the entrapped boat.
Yeah, Ted, I spoke incorrectly. You told me that 5 to 6 minutes to roll onto scene, 8 to 9 minutes to get into the water, 7 minutes, they were all done. Total of it was an hour and 7 minutes, and you were on to your next call. That's what I meant. So thank you for correcting me on that. Well, gentlemen, it's just a fascinating story, and I know that these life-saving things don't come along every day. I know you have people injured, people hurt, and many times, in fact, when I talked about this story last week, we had a diver from the Josephine Search and Rescue. He called in. He said, "This is Jim, diver 19," and he said many times it's a recovery situation where we are recovering and looking for body and for a body, and like Bob, like you said, looking for evidence, helping the sheriff's office with evidence on a crime, checking vehicles in the water, checking all those different things. Rarely do they get a chance to save someone from near death, and it's a great success story, and we're just so proud of you two and the rest of the team.
Thank you. I think that Bob can address, he's been on a number of these in the past, and I think he can address for you how often they actually turn out successfully.
Bob, I mean, it's not very many times in your lifetime do you have something like this.
I've had 3 of these, including this one in my career, 2 with the Coast Guard, and they just end bad. When boats overturn, injuries occur. I was horrified when I realized what we actually had.
Right.
And because having been through it a couple of times and seen the end result, I was like, this is going to be a close run thing. It sure makes for a rich, full day.
It does. So for anyone that's listening that has boating experience, that spends a lot of time in the water, that maybe be thinking that they're going to go out in the water, what are these safety tips, Bob, that people can be thinking that have that situational awareness? What would you offer our listeners as, be careful out on the waterways next time? What kind of things would you tell our listeners?
I'd always be very cognizant of the tides, the winds. Make sure you have safety gear. Make sure you know your boat intimately, its capabilities, where all the safety is and safety equipment, pumps, everything's in working order, and just use your head. Be smart about it.
Is there communications? I mean, did someone had to have seen this boat when it capsized and they called 911? Was there ever a call from any of the people in the water at that point? They were already in the water, so it was somebody watching, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was. People from, I think, the Osprey Point Marina saw it go over. I don't believe there was any transmissions or anything from the boat at that point. I think the two individuals on the outside of the boat, they were out of it, and the fireboats picked them up. And then they were telling our crew what they had and what we had underneath, and so we were being fed information as this went along.
Wow. Well, gentlemen, thank you again so much for your time this morning. And ladies and gentlemen, from Lakeside Fire Department, Chief Ted Ross and Dive Chief Bob Hood sharing their experiences on this life-saving event, June 12th in Tenmile Lake with a capsized sailboat, and all 5 individuals on that boat survived that day, including a 2-year-old child. And gentlemen, it's just once again a privilege and honor to have you, and great Americans. I appreciate all you do, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Commissioner Bridenthal.
All right, there you go. All right, we'll be right back. More on the Sunrise Show. We continue.
Stay tuned. Sunrise will return in a moment on KCMX News Talk 880.